Hello, welcome back to my channel. Quick side note, as you can see, there's a little bit of a shift that's going to be happening on my channel pretty soon. And I just want to let you know for my subscribers who are subscribed that I want to use my channel for a little bit more good. So therefore, I am rebranding my channel as Policies on Democracy. And what it is to educate, inform, and enlighten people about the policies on democracy in the United States. On this channel, I'll be looking into topics such as the US Constitution, US history, history of all three branches of government, and of course, I'm going to be clocking the T on the political parties. Okay? Please know that I will try to stay as neutral as possible, but some topics will call for me to speak on them as I interpret them. So I'm going to call it like I see it. In today's video, I will be discussing tariffs. Many people, including myself, feel as if the information being put out there about tariffs is really misleading and nobody's really answering the questions that people want to know. So I'm going to go ahead and try and do that today. Do know that I don't have all the answers in the world and that some of these scenarios are going to be just scenarios. So they're not things that are happening currently. But do know that I just want to educate, inform, and enlighten you guys on tariffs a bit more. With that being said, if you would like to be educated, informed, and enlightened yourself, make sure to hit that subscribe button, that like button, and of course, make sure to comment. I definitely want to have more conversations with you all. So, let's get started. Tariffs. You're probably thinking, what are tariffs? Well, the information that I have seen is a combination of the following concerns, problems, and solutions regarding tariffs. Companies pay the tariff. Companies do not pay the tariff. Tariffs will raise prices for the consumer. Tariffs will lower inflation. Tariffs will raise inflation. The consumer doesn't fit the bill. The consumer fits the bill. No, you're mistaken. Tariffs will force American companies to increase production, allowing for us consumers to buy into the American market. No, tariffs are going to hurt small businesses because the price on imported goods will raise, meaning that tariffs are ultimately going to raise the price for consumers. Whoa, wait. First, let's recognize that all these concerns, issues, problems, and solutions are somewhat true. Let's start with the definition of tariffs. Tariffs are taxes imposed by one country on goods imported from another country. Tariffs are also trade barriers that raise prices, reduce available quantities of goods and services for US businesses and consumers, and they create an economic burden on foreign exporters. I'll break it down even more. Let's start the function. Imagine you like a specific pair of socks that are made in the UK. In the UK, the socks cost €5. In the United States, the socks cost $5. The US then decides that we're going to impose a tariff on imported goods. Well, the socks are imported goods because they come from the UK, they aren't made in the US. Meaning that the cost of the socks are actually going to increase from $5 in the US to $6, maybe even $7. Except the price of the socks will still remain at €5 because it's produced in the UK. Another example, if you're still not getting what I'm trying to explain to you, if a car manufacturer imports engines that are then used in vehicles, the tariffs on those imposed engines will increase the production costs and the costs to the consumer. The costs of tariffs result in higher burdens on international trade, which can harm production. So let's go back to the definition and let's talk about a few things. Number one, tariffs are taxes imposed on one country on imported goods that come from another country. It doesn't have to just be one specific country. It can be a tariff on any product that's brought in. It could be a tariff on consumer goods. It can be a tariff brought on materials, depending on where it comes from the other countries that are not the country that imposed it. They are trade barriers. Because of tariffs and how they're put in place, outside of the US companies, are going to be forced to raise their prices, which creates a trade barrier because we are forcing them to raise their prices. It reduces the available quantities of goods and services for US businesses and consumers. It really does. If you're a US business that it relies on imported goods from other countries, you're going to be reduced in the available quantity that you have, especially if the price raises and you're not making enough revenue to cover the cost of the new good or service. And it does create an economic burden on foreign exporters because they would like to keep their prices low for consumers, but now they have to pay. And that leads me into effect on market and consumers. The Many companies get products from various supply chains outside of the US. A good example of this is tropical fruit. How many of you like pineapple or any type of tropical fruit? Unfortunately, the US does not have the right climate and availability of materials to grow that produce. Okay? So, if a tariff is imposed, then the cost of that tropical fruit is going to increase, meaning that the cost of goods coming from imported companies or imported goods and services are going to raise. And that's going to affect the consumer and the companies that are getting the tariff. With that little bit of knowledge that you know about tariffs and the effect on the market, let's go ahead and answer some of the concerns that you two had. Number one, tariffs are going to increase prices for the consumer. But again, the consumer has the right to decide if they want to pay that increased price or they want to find something else. The UK socks example. If you really like the pair of socks from UK, you might be willing to pay if it's $6, but if the price goes up to $8 or even $10, that's another question. Companies will pay the tariffs, except companies will have to find a way to supplement that income, and most likely they will raise the price of their products. Tariffs are gonna raise inflation. By a lot, probably not, but they are going to raise the cost of things. So it's not going to take the costs off of Americans' backs. The consumer does fit the bill. Ultimately, the consumer will pay the cost, especially if there's someone who pays for it, or if they're a small business owner who relies heavily on imported goods. They're going to bear the brunt of the cost. Sure, tariffs are going to force American companies to increase their production, allowing for consumers to buy into the American market, except once people decide, again, the consumer has to decide to buy into the American company or market, the American company might raise their prices just because. So it's a waiting game. And tariffs, like I mentioned before, are going to hurt small business owners, especially if they rely heavily on imported goods. So as you can see, tariffs aren't as black and white as the media has been making them out to be. But I want to talk a little bit more about business model. See, a business is defined as an organization or an enterprising entity engaged in commercial, industrial, or professional activities. Businesses can be for profit or they can be non-profit organizations. Their type of businesses are different. They can be sole proprietorships, they can be corporations or partnerships. Some businesses can be small in like a single industry, while others are larger operations spread across many industries around the world. The Apple might have their headquarters in California, but it doesn't mean that they don't have other buildings placed throughout the world to monitor their business and their organization in those areas. Now, I'm not sure if you all know, but for-profit businesses like to make money. They don't like to lose money. But you guys, but name a business that likes to lose money in the comment section. I'll wait. Because no business wants to lose money. They never want to lose money. You can think about the stock market. If it's green, it's good. If it's yellow, it's a little concerning. If it's red, it's time for you to jump ship. So here's a scenario for you. There's a business outside of the US that imports goods into the US with a set tax, a tariff that's already been placed, that allows for the business to continue to make profit and maintain production on their product and service. because instead it doesn't really affect their budget that much. They're still making money and they're able to keep production going. The US decides to raise the tariff. Now the company realizes that they have to pay even more to import goods into the US. They have a couple options. They can stop importing goods into the US in general, but if the US is a huge market for them, why would they lose out on that money? So most companies are going to go ahead and pay the increased tariff. Now, in a nice and everyone wins scenario, the businesses will foot the bill and take the loss. But like I just said, name a company that wants to lose money. The business decides that instead of minimizing the chance that they're going to lose revenue and their budget's going to be affected, they would rather raise the price on their consumers to cover that increased tax and that loss of revenue. A good example is the UK socks. The UK brand decides, well, our socks are €5 here, but we can't maintain them at $5 in the US. So let's go ahead and raise them to $6. They explain to their consumers, hey, the price is going to be increased because we need production and we need to be able to get this stuff to you. The consumers say, right, I guess. I mean, I like your socks. They're very comfortable. They're better than some of the American socks here. I guess I'll pay the $6. And so the company is back to booming as normal. But what if the tariffs increased even more? Well, then the company now has to pay more, and now they increase more, and then it just keeps going up. And then eventually consumers are confused because they don't know, do I buy the socks in the UK if they're $15 now? Or do I just buy the American socks? I don't like the American socks. I like the UK socks. Dilemma. Hopefully you all can see where I'm going with the tariffs. They're very confusing. They're confusing for a reason. Like most things are confusing, so people don't understand them. And they don't ask questions. But let's get to the conclusion of this. Let's go back to the beginning of this video where some of the concerns, problems, issues, and solutions regarding tariffs. And let's wrap it up. Tariffs will increase the price for consumers. It's just going to happen. Like I said, businesses don't want to lose money. They want to make money. So if they're now forced to spend more money on importing goods, they're going to raise the cost of that good and service. The companies do pay the tariffs. You out here saying the companies won't. They do initially, but they cover that cost by raising the price onto consumers. So both consumers and companies paid the tariff. But you know who wins in this scenario? The US. They get that sweet, sweet revenue. Tariffs will initially raise inflation. Will it continue to raise inflation? Honestly, I'm not sure. I don't think it's going to skyrocket crazily, but it is going to raise it, and it might be uncomfortable for a lot of people who rely heavily on a specific budget. So it is going to raise inflation. And to try and minimize how much it's going to weigh, it depends. To someone, maybe $1 in raised inflation is a big deal. But to someone else, if inflation goes up less than $1, it's not a big deal to them. So it depends on the consumer. Like I said before, the consumer does fit the bill, along with the company that's importing the goods. Sure, it will force American companies to increase production, but for how long are they going to maintain that sweet production before they decide to hike up their prices to make even more revenue? Like I said, in business model, you want to make money, you don't want to lose it. And if you become stagnant, then you might not make as much money as you want to. And in the market, you want to make as much money as you want to. And lastly, tariffs will hurt small businesses, especially if they heavily rely on imported goods. It's just naturally going to hurt them. And unfortunately, that's where we leave it here. Have not been enacted yet. So I can't really say for a fact if things are going to happen. I can go off of the definition and historical evidence, but until we really see it in real time, we don't know. With that being said, hopefully you guys got a little better understanding of how tariffs work. Hopefully this opened up your eyes to different scenarios, how things work. Hopefully you're not someone who's like, no, the tariffs are going to solve all the problems. They're not going to solve all the problems. Well, the tariffs are going to be harsh on Americans. That's true, but it depends on how harsh it's going to be when it comes to the consumer. Again, with that being said, if you would like to educate, inform, and enlighten yourself, make sure you hit that subscribe button, like the video, hit that like button. Of course, comment. I want to know, did you know these about tariffs? And if you didn't, are you educated? Are you informed? And are you enlightened?